Good evening and welcome, everyone. This is our monthly meeting, a public meeting of Lower Hudson Group of Sierra Club, which includes Rockland County, Putnam, Westchester, and the southern part of Orange County. And it's also co-sponsored by Mid-Hudson Group of Sierra Club that covers Ulster, Dutchess, and parts of Columbia, Greene, Delaware, and Orange counties. My name is Peggy Kurtz. We meet monthly to discuss local, state, and sometimes larger environmental issues. We generally have focused the most on the climate crisis and climate actions. In a way, our meeting this evening is kind of climate action, or I guess very much so. But we are also doing a year-long series or more on the equally serious crisis of biodiversity and extinctions. Next month's meeting is July 14th, and it's a conversation with an expert on biodiversity titled Ecological Overshoot, Population, and Overconsumption and the Planet. So I think it will be really interesting. It's a topic that can be sometimes a little bit controversial, but it's just a fact. There's an impact of population and overconsumption, very much so, on biodiversity and the crisis of extinctions. So thank you again very much for joining us this evening. In order to avoid, we've been Zoom bombed a couple of times, so in order to avoid Zoom bombing, we have placed some restrictions. We have muted everybody as you come in. We will turn that back on as soon as we will allow everybody to unmute themselves when we get to the Q&A. You should be able to chat in the meantime. We're going to start with our presentation, followed by Q&A and discussion. You can put questions into the chat as we go along. And you can also just raise your hand like this, or you can go to the react, the little star at the bottom of the screen that says react, and then look for raise hand. So we'll go back and forth between those who have their hands raised and the chat for questions. So first we'll have our main topic. That will be followed by a few other issues, including a very brief recap of what the state legislature passed and unfortunately did not pass in this session. We'll talk briefly about the budget issues that are going on right now that are still being decided. We'll also have an update on the status of a huge data center that has been proposed for Rockland County that's very energy intensive, possibly very water. And this is an issue that we're seeing now throughout the state, is these data centers. So even if you don't live in Rockland County, it is probably still relevant to you. So our topic right now on restoring the culture and the arts of repair, we thought of as a bit of an antidote or a break from the relentlessly stressful and upsetting news. If you're paying attention to the news, it can be extremely stressful. And this is a break. For once, it's something positive and it's something very concrete that you can start trying to do today. It's satisfying. It can even be creative. So, and I don't know, even just planning this has made me more aware, even though I kind of have always been a big fan of repair. So now I'm going to introduce our speakers. Sarah Wilson is the chair of our Sierra Club Lower Hudson Group, and she has been the organizer of the Yorktown Repair Cafe in northern Westchester since 2018, and she wears lots and lots of other hats as well. Susie Fromer is the coordinator of the Repair Cafe of Hudson Valley, and she's also a jewelry repair coach. So Susie and Sarah, you should be able to share your screens. Go for it.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. This is a fun topic, as Peggy said, so I hope you're all going to enjoy it. Again, we will open it up for questions. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can share my screen. Just one moment. do this. And I will go in to slideshow mode. And I will, okay, can you just see the cover slide?
Mhm.
Okay. So the first thing I'm sharing is a word map that came out of the book that's being shown here called Repair Revolution. And the two people who are holding the books, one of them is John Wackman, who, as we'll learn about shortly, brought repair cafes to the Hudson Valley, and Elizabeth Knight, who's a very active repair advocate and also an organizer of repair cafes. So repair can be both physical and, of course, it can be emotional as well. So here's just, a brief sharing of what repair is and can be, and what repair can do. And it's so much more than simply repairing a physical item. So when we think about the emotional elements and the greater world view of repair, it's not just repairing that physical object. We start to think about the impact that we're having on the world, on our community. And in the book, they indicate that the repair movement is an innovation, but it's also a reemergence of some very, very old concepts. And we can think about the act of mending, and it brings to mind various cultures in the tradition of Zen, the aesthetic of wabi-sabi, and you see the bowl on the left, with the beautiful repair, not trying to hide it, but seeing the beauty in brokenness. Indigenous worldview, the concept of reweaving the basket of life. And in the Hebrew tradition, tikkun olam, which is the concept of repair of the world. So repair goes far beyond simply repairing objects, but really looking at the broader impact on our planet and to our spirit and philosophically. Repair is deep in our bones. For as long as we've had objects, we've had tools to create those objects and tools to fix those objects. It used to be that every town had repair shops. And certainly here in the US, the concept of Yankee thrift and Ben Franklin and his Poor Richard's Almanac, go back in our history. As I was researching this topic for the presentation tonight, I actually learned that John Muir of the Sierra Club was very mechanically gifted. And before he set out west on his explorations, he spent quite a bit of time working in factories, repairing and renovating equipment. It was very handy. And then, of course, we think about the Depression era, our grandparents and, the thrift and not throwing things out and repairing items, was very embedded in our culture. And then, through World War II, scrap drives and victory gardens. But then post-World War II, the world really embraced a materials economy, very wasteful, using a lot of precious resources. And nowadays, many of us don't repair because our culture doesn't honor that, doesn't emphasize that. And it's so much more about convenience. So that kind of takes us to where we are now. We think the 3 R's but this graphic actually shows us 7 Rs. And, starting out with don't consume what we don't need to consume. And then how we can go through the cycle of really minimizing the impact that we're having on pulling these precious resources, out. Um, Certainly we get down to repair, and that's what we're going to be focusing on this evening. But really throughout the whole cycle, all the different ways that you can rethink your consumption, your relationship with things, and your relationship with the earth. And a quote that I like from the book is, the wisdom of repair is creative, commonsensical, and in a throwaway world, radical. And I'm going to turn it over now to Susie, who's going to take us through what happened in our culture as we moved away from repair.
Perfect. Yeah. So I'd done 2 talks for a very different audience. One was the International Group of Repair Cafe, and then also New York State Federated Waste Management. So I had all these pieces, and Sarah and I worked together to put them together, and we both said the same thing, which was that the post World War II, there's a real change in this country. But it's before that there's been a loss of this do-it-yourself culture all over the world, which has impacted rates of repair, and obviously increasing industrialization and job skill specialization that happened 1800s, 1900s. Used to be people lived on a farm or in a community like that, and you did everything. You baked your own bread, you sewed your own dresses, you mended your own shirts. So not just repair, but just to do the first sewing. And as, of course, people got these more specialized jobs, that people forgot how to do those things. So, and then again, the profit model, and the throwaway culture and the materialism, and the excitement post World War II, but also the advertising industry, right? All these things became what sort of pushed the US culture forward. And I think we here in the US have a harder time pushing repair than they do in Europe. It's just a little bit more baked into their bones there. And um, I work with all the people across the country, and there's there's some folks in Washington State who live on an island, and it's like you need to have that island thinking of limited resources, and so of course in England they have that, so there's just different approaches. It's very interesting. Okay, yeah. All right. So, just this was just a concrete example of how commercial repair, right, going to a repair shop became less available. U.S. shoe repair shops were ubiquitous in the 1930s, not to mention a shoe shine, right? You could do that anywhere. There were estimated 100,000 shoe repair shops in the U.S. in the 30s, even though there were so few people. By the 50s, 60,000. By 2005, estimates of just over 3,000. And even there was, so that's a 95% decrease between the 50s and 2025. And even between 2020 and 2025, there's been an additional 4%, 4.4% decrease. And we have a shoe shop in the next town over, but he's been trying to sell it and find someone to take it over. So there's this lack of people to pass on the skills and the shops to. And it's really, people don't know where to go to get their things fixed. And it also then becomes cheaper to replace them. And that's another issue that we struggle with. Okay, yeah. So here, just as so again, people have been repairing as long as they had things, but this modern resurgence is very modern. The history, we call it the community repair movement, because we know repair cafes, but there are a few other models of free events throughout the world. And so in 2009 was October 18th was the first repair cafe held by Martina Postma, an environmental journalist who kind of hatched, let's get together and serve coffee and tea and do this in 2009 in Amsterdam. And then later in December 2009 was the Fix It Clinic was founded. And that's just a different model. It's very common in California. Peter Muey of Berkeley, but it's also in Massachusetts. And the first one is in Brooklyn now. So the first one in New York State has opened. And that's more of a come together to a space and fix your stuff with some advice, but you're getting really hands-on. So it's just a little bit different model. And the Fixers Collective was started in Brooklyn in 2010, and then 2013 was John Wackman held the first one in the Hudson Valley, which was in New Paltz. And then in 2017, the Open Repair Alliance was established in London. And what that is it's a bunch of groups like Fix It Clinic and iFixit and Repair Cafe, all sort of getting together to be just like we're the group looking over international repair. And right now, iFixit, which is a tool company, is looking to sort of become that for the U.S. movement to just sort of help us all keep connected. So yeah, and right, of course, the community repair initiatives have propagated like a garden. Fix It Fridays, Make Do and Mend circles, restart parties, tool libraries we're very closely linked to tool. We work hand in hand with them, and also yeah, I think another slide has all the right free cycling, upcycling, and maker movement. And this has all been just really expanding. So why the huge growth, right? It's to reduce waste and save things in the landfill. That's like a huge impetus, is to save that gas of trekking things to the landfill, and also all this talk about Seneca Meadows getting full, right? But it's also to preserve and pass down these skills that could be lost because it's hard to go pay someone. It saves people money, and because this issue of it can be more expensive so one of the things in Europe they've talked about is vouchers, like a government funded program where they give you a 50% discount to go use a local repair shop. So they're working on that there. But I mean, we have these cafes, and it just saves you money to go for free. It feeds our curiosity, both the fixers and also people who come and people learn. I train new people to do jewelry all the time, and I tell people, of all the skills there, I think jewelry is the easiest one to learn. So please join us. And it empowers. No, we're always, because the lamps and all that stuff, it gets a little scarier with electricity if you're not really have any background. But jewelry, if you can hold 2 pliers, you can do it. But also that empowerment that people can go home and be like, wow, I never thought I could pick up 2 pair of pliers and open my own jump ring and put it back on. But these are big ones. Sorry, I'm having cat problems. It fosters community, and that about being together, and that this model is, of course, it's about repair, but it's about doing it together and having a community event where you see your neighbors you might not have seen for a while. And the network has now grown to 70 cafes. And so it is also about seeing your fixer friends. It's really become this network of, we rotate and see each other all the time, and it's just lovely. And it helps us change our relationship with our things, which is you're no longer owned by them, you own them, and you can fix them, and you don't have to be a victim of consumer culture. You can choose to try to repair. I've been teaching myself zipper repair because we had someone in our network who does that, do a workshop, and it's on our YouTube page, and it is just incredible. And I fixed 3 or 4 zippers for my family this weekend, and they were very happy. So again, this is just, you can see from 2012 through 2024, just the enormous growth of the number of repair cafes or repair events. It's just, it's exponential. And so what is a repair cafe? It's free, it's local, it's grassroots, almost entirely volunteer run. And we like to say, I think John came up with this, it's you come and you get your beloved but broken items fixed by neighbors, by volunteer repair coaches who are also your neighbors. I mean, you literally walk in and you see people that you didn't know could do things, doing things. And there are all these other names for different community repair: Fix It Collective, Fix It Clinics, Repair Fests, Dare to Repair. They're all, but we all know each other. It's such a friendly and welcoming and inclusive group. And at this point, the count for repair cafes is over 3,500 worldwide, but they're also aware that that may be very undercounting, and there are also additional things that are not repair cafes. So again, where did repair cafes come from? Amsterdam, 2009, Martina Postma, but then in 2013, John Wackman. He was, I think, a board or an executive member of Sustainable Hudson Valley, which is the nonprofit that I work for. He was on their board, and he saw an article in New York Times about Martina Postma's cafe, and he went and he brought Holly, his partner, and didn't tell her that they would be fixing jewelry. She would be fixing jewelry. So she got to Amsterdam and started fixing jewelry, and they just really enjoyed the whole experience. And they came back, brought the first one to New Paltz in 2013. and his enthusiasm and passion for it and for people and for community just really spread the movement. It's now in 15 counties throughout the Hudson Valley. It's pretty incredible. And so, yeah, and they just celebrated 15 years of cafes. So 70 cafes. This is just and I don't think I've finished all, not everyone is even there, but that's the counting is there, but the pictures are not, I don't think. So we just got 2 new ones last week. So that's where they are. And if you click back through to the next one, you can see, I think this is the accounting of sort of which ones that, yeah, so that, right, I'm having a lot of trouble keeping this slide without spilling
Up
over.
to date.
Not just up to date, but like on this page. So Ulster County, we just got our 70th cafe in Ulster County in Ellenville, which is just like, it's an underserved community with a lot of issues. And it's the same county as where we started, but a world away. So it's just really full circle. And we're really excited about that.
And obviously we in Lower Hudson Group cover Rockland, Westchester, Putnam, and the southern part of Orange County. And then of course, just north of us, the Mid-Hudson Group covers Dutchess and Ulster, and I think, not sure where else, but probably some more of Orange County as well. So we're well represented in all of these communities.
And so again, why so many repair cafes here? I get asked this question a lot because again, the Repair Cafe Hudson Valley Group preceded me. John preceded me when I joined these international and national calls. Everyone knows about us already. And it was because of John and his enthusiasm. But also I want to give a shout out to Sarah because I only started in this 3 years ago, and she is so instrumental in Westchester supporting every cafe that happens. She is absolutely helped with all the ones that have come back to Putnam. We had none in Putnam when I started. We have 3 now. The amount of work that the organizers like Sarah are doing is just unbelievable. Like I sort of have someone in every county who I know I can sort of be like, they're going to help, but Sarah is just, she never says no. And she does so above and beyond. And I think that is an important part of the movement, is that the people, and Bob, I want to give a shout out to her husband, Bob, one of our absolute best fixers. And the same thing goes to all the, so, I mean, it's just, it speaks to who it speaks to. And those of us who are in it for the long haul. And that's what it speaks about how enjoyable it is that people are just so happy to be that dedicated. Here in New York, we also have the Climate Smart Community Program, which is, it's a boon. It really is a help. And you get points for doing certain actions, and the cafes do give you, I think it's 2 cafes over 5 years, but also you get an additional 2 points if you can prove and show that you've worked with another municipality. So it's 4 points there to be gathered. And again, yeah, John had volunteered doing what I do 30 hours a week, but he created the need for this position. It is very rare to have any paid repair organizational work in the US, and it is a lot of work. And I'm, by grants and grant funding and donations, having this position, I'm able to lighten the load on all 70 organizers and make it, using John's book as a tool to help people. It has, that's another reason that there's so much spread, because it's just, we're organized, so.
Well, thanks to Susie for helping spread all of these repair cafes.
They come to me. We inherit, what I say, adopt cafes all the time. Like people call me and they're like, we're all ready to go. We just want to be on your I mean, some of it is a lot of hand-holding and nurturing, but some of it is just really organized people finding us because we're just so present, and it's kind of beautiful. So here, I was able to crunch some numbers for the, these companies love numbers. The collective impact in 2022, which was the first year I started, there were 69 events, 69. So there were fewer than that in terms of the number of repair cafes by name, but there were 69 repair cafes held. And then 130 were held in 2023, and then 158 were held in 2024. So you can see it's pretty expansive growth, just by the number of events being held year after year after year. We average about 40 guests who bring 60 items. Often we have like a 2-item limit. It can depend on the size of the item or the time. It just is, it's more flexible. And we sort of hit the 75% number for items mixed. That seems to be right, and we really crunch it at every cafe. And so that meant about 3,000 items saved from the landfill in 22, over 6,000 in 23, it really doubled, and almost 7,500 items this past year in 2024. And again, we do absolutely expect that to be bigger as we're having more sites, which means more cafes, which means more stuff fixed. And then again, after cafes, some things are fixed because they didn't get fixed then, but then you go buy the part, get the part, or you go to another cafe, or you fix it on your own with advice given. So it's sort of this roaming. You might get it fixed at another cafe and not get credit for the first one, but it was a mutual thing.
Yeah, I can speak to fixes after the Repair Cafe. My husband took home 3 items from the Mayapack Repair Cafe, which was, I guess, 2 weeks ago. A clock, a vacuum cleaner, George, and
A robot,
and a robot,
not bad.
and that had sentimental value. And he just finished fixing all 3 of them. So that doesn't always get in the stats.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I'm going to talk a little bit about just what types of items come in to the Repair Cafe and share some pictures. So the number one item that comes in uh, sort of across the board here in the US anyway are lamps. And of course, all sorts of electrical items. So that includes appliances. Coffee makers are a very popular item in Europe. Not so much here, but we do get them. But all sorts of kitchen appliances, um, and lots and lots of lamps. And as Susie said, people get a little intimidated, a little scared, because it's electrical, right? But this is not a drop-off service. So you're sitting there, you're working with the volunteer. Sometimes you're holding something for them, while they need a third hand, to organize what they're doing. And so they're explaining as they go what they're doing. And you realize in many cases, something like changing out the socket of a lamp really isn't that difficult. Vacuum cleaners, on the other hand, can you open it up, you never know what you're going to find. After electrical, we get many mechanical type items that come through the door. And again, a large number of volunteers with a large number of tools and all sorts of know-how. And there isn't just one way to fix something. And so everybody brings their own ideas. There's a lot of collaboration that happens between the various volunteers, repair coaches, and people are just so pleased when you're able to put this thing back into service and bring it back to life. The second most popular item that's brought in are textile items that need repair. And, most repair cafes have more than one sewing volunteer. The photo on the right, which is a great photo, by the way, Susie. I see the person is shortening pants. We don't do that at our Yorktown Repair Cafe because that's an alteration. It isn't really a repair. And the idea is that we're not trying to take business away from, local businesses that are still providing a service. You can go to the dry cleaners and probably have that alteration done. But if a volunteer is willing to do it, that's fine. Every repair cafe is a little different, and it's really what the volunteer is comfortable doing and is willing to do. One concept with textile repairs, and again, textiles, I can speak at least, in my experience, is the second most popular repair item to be brought in. There's the concept of invisible mending, which is striving not to show that something needed to be repaired, compared to the beauty in many people's eyes of visible mending, and to really celebrate again the fact that even though something needs a repair, that it can be made even more beautiful than it was to start with. I love the colors in the worn elbow of the sweater, and the the denim repair. And there are actually some Japanese techniques, sashiko embroidery and boro mending, that again are very elaborate and really celebrate that concept of repair. It's not for everyone. Yeah. Um, so some people like it, some people don't. But this is some of the feedback that Susie, I think you've collected from some of the sewing coaches in terms of whether people, are okay with a repair that's clearly going to be a visible repair. Jewelry, as Susie mentioned, she's a jewelry repair coach. That's Susie on the left, and that's Holly on the right. Correct, Susie?
Yeah, yeah, and it was funny. I was there that day, and we had both had the same thought, and we both had bought watch battery replacement kits, and we both showed up with them on site at Gardner, and we're like, great minds think alike. And we did a battery changing class with a real watch expert because it can be a little tricky, and it's up on our YouTube channel, and it's just been a great skill to expand because it's again, where do you go to get your watch battery replaced, and how much money is it? It's quite expensive sometimes. So
Really? Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, we don't do watch batteries at our Yorktown Repair Cafe because I really don't want the liability of,
Yeah.
opening it up. And, and again, we have numerous jewelry stores in the area, and they really don't charge much for your typical watch. So, again, our concept is not to take business away from those few shops that, are still providing service repairs. But again, every repair cafe is different, and it's based on what the volunteers feel comfortable with. Woodworking is another type of repair that's done at repair cafes. Pretty common to see it at every repair cafe, and all sorts of items come through the door. I love that little hobby horse in the back there,
Oh,
that photo on the left.
yeah.
And then, of course, computers and technology presents challenges to lots of people. And sometimes it's not really a repair, it's a kind of education where somebody, just really wants to come in and get advice for how they can do something with their computer, or why their computer is doing something, or their phone, or some other device. So having the ability to access, skilled professionals. In many cases, we have many engineers, retired engineers, who can really provide great help to people. Bike repairs are very common as well. And, it's often a safety check type thing, where they'll just want to bring it in and say, can you please check it out? Is everything, in good shape for us to use um, at some of the repair cafes, there are actually groups of volunteers that do this as kind of a regular thing, where they'll take bikes, they'll find bikes that are donated, they'll fix them up, they'll put them back in the community for people. So again, every repair cafe is different. In Peekskill, there were a couple of months back, there were several volunteers working on not only bicycles, but also the scooters that so many of the young people like to use. And so that was interesting. Hadn't seen that before.
If it, it really varies, right? Because we have some
Hmm.
really rural, and then all of a sudden we're in a city, and it's really interesting to see that sort of. I call us the loosest franchise ever because the character of the cafe is so strong based on what is available, the fixers and also the stuff that comes in.
Yep, yep. We had invited a bike repair shop early on when we started in Yorktown, and they came once. They didn't really have a lot of business. And again, we're happy to refer people to the bike shop, but in some cases it's a financial issue. And so we're happy to provide a service in this way. A really popular service that some of the repair cafes have is sharpening. So, if a repair cafe has sharpening, it's usually really, really popular. Scissors and all sorts of knives and blades. Different volunteers, again, have different types of tools and different things that they can work on. But that's really valuable. And again, it can be a safety issue, right? You want to have your tools sharp. And then I just love this, ceramics and gluing. My husband, in addition to electrical, he brings all the different types of adhesives to not only our repair cafe, but other repair cafes in the area. And people bring in these items that have such sentimental value, and they're so appreciative if you're able to piece it back together and make it whole again.
And there's, a seasonal aspect because it's like all of a sudden all the Christmas ornaments came out. Okay, so they were like, oh no.
A new thing that we started getting was Christmas lights.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
There's, oh gee, there's just a few that are blown out and working
A
on
great
things
picture
like
from our
that.
cafe. There was a guy, he finally found the one that was loose and he couldn't put, it was like he had taken him the whole time. I got his back and yeah.
All right, so I'm going to turn it back over to Susie to talk about some of the economic and
Um,
social benefits of repair cafes.
So, people talk about job creation, and we have not figured out how to get there yet. So at this point, we're training people. People come, we have an informal apprenticeship where you work with someone and y- y- you can become skilled in that area. And then if you want to get more training or, you have to do that outside. But there has been some talk about if we can get certified as an apprenticeship site, then it would count, your hours would count. We try to reach out to BOCES on the individual level, just anything that we can do like that to get younger people involved is always something we're interested in. And to get that synergy of people coming to the cafes to help out. There's also there's a move right now towards what they call reuse innovation centers, which are giant. There's several on the West Coast right now. They're talking about one. I heard they were talking in Binghamton, definitely talking in Clifton Park, and we're talking about one in Kingston. And the idea is that it's this whole reuse and not quite deconstruction, but things come in, they get separated to the right place, and then there would also be sort of like a restore kind of, the things would be sold, but also that we hope to have a repair shop, a permanent repair shop where people would be, it probably wouldn't be a cafe anymore, probably wouldn't be a social thing, but it could be paid repair for some of our people, and that's what we want, and it would be a place everyone knows they can go and drop it for multiple things, and, so that's the hope, and we're seeing some movement. And of course, yes, we always refer to repair shops. We work very hard to keep lists of qualified people doing good work, and a lot of them come and volunteer if they can. And what I always like to say is that the repair cafe is like an emergency room. It's triage, it's fast, maybe even dirty, quick, what you can do right there. But sometimes you just get patched up and then you have to go to the emergency room. And so sometimes something gets diagnosed and says, no, this needs a 3-hour fix or more in a professional shop. And so we are always happy to do that. It's just a different thing than what we're really doing at the cafes. And of course, there's, these community resilience is a big buzzword right now. Um, that cafes can be really helpful towards a community becoming more resilient towards the things like supply chain disruption and COVID. Really, what I heard was that it really did advance the right to repair laws because we saw how hard it was to get pieces and parts, and so that pushed it forward. And of course, the tariffs is also another round of things that is threatened tariffs and getting people to take this stuff more seriously. Libraries as sustainability hubs, for sure. They are the ones teaching the classes. They're often, a lot of libraries are also cafe organizers and hosts.
Mhm.
Often a class may be more at their speed or better for their space, lamp repair, sewing, absolutely. And then the libraries of tools or libraries of things, tool libraries, lots is the term I heard, that libraries of things, that this is another expanding movement. Some at libraries, some not, some just a shed in the
Mhm. Mhm.
and they're a big movement and are really working hard to, so that again, you don't have to go out and buy a drill to use the drill once, you can borrow it, sort of like that friends and neighbors bartering kind of thing, going back to the old times. And of course, the social impact, that is sort of where repair cafes shine versus some other repair things. They really do build community and help people fight loneliness. It helps us value our seniors. A lot of our guests are seniors, but a lot of our fixers are seniors, and they just love it. They have the time. A lot of our organizers are also seniors. They have the time to give back, and they want to feel valued, and we value them. They have unbelievable skills. I interviewed a woman in her 80s. She's from England. She is a darning and knit specialist. I mean, she knits, and so she can do all these, and these are skills that I will say young people are interested. That's textile seems to be the one thing appealing to people. And my nieces are both tremendous knitters and crocheters and have gotten involved. But it's just, so this is a way to pass down the skills, to preserve the skills, and also to change our throwaway mindset. Because people now, when there's a repeating cafe or they know there's one next week, everyone has a pile. They have a place to put it in their house and they know where to bring it now. I'm going to let you handle this one because it's a lot.
Okay, that's fine. So you mentioned the right to repair movement, which really, accelerated during COVID. And it really is accelerating. New York was the first state to pass a right to repair law, which covers digital items. The Digital Fair Repair Act, which has been in effect since December 2023. And it requires electronic device manufacturers that do business in New York to make parts, tools, and documentation available to people, to the consumers, as well as to independent repair shops. It is limited to digital devices, but that now gives consumers options in terms of where they get something repaired. They don't have to be dealing with the manufacturer, because if they can get it worked on locally, maybe faster service and a lower price. Estimates have shown families can save up over $300 per year in repair-related costs. And since New York, there have been 5 other states that have passed right to repair laws, again, on certain items. And generally, the concept is we want to make sure that manufacturers make spare parts available, make the repair manuals and other repair information available, and allow people to access any special tools. I can't tell you how often volunteers trying to take something apart, but it's some special tool, that doesn't fit your normal standard and metric measurements, and you can't even get something taken apart. There are some companies that really do embrace the concept of repair. Patagonia, for quite a long time, has had a worn wear component, to their sales, where you can trade in your item, and get credit towards a new item. Or if you're just interested in purchasing a worn item, because it's less expensive and it's sustainable and all that, they also make lots of repair and care guides available. So, they've really been doing it for quite a while. And Eileen Fisher also offers a pretty robust repair program. And Susie, you're actually doing something coming up at Eileen
Yeah.
Fisher, right?
Yeah, so I live in Irvington and I do run the Irvington Repair Cafe. And so we had been on their radar through all the Eileen Fisher's headquarters is in Irvington and she lives in Irvington. And so they came to our cafe and they were talking about volunteering. And so what they decided was that this year, unfortunately, it's the same date as Sarah's, because they gave us a date. We work very hard behind the scenes not to do this stuff. But you know what? When Eileen Fisher calls you up, and not Eileen Fisher, but the company, and it's like, hey, we want to do this. So we're going to be doing it in their headquarters, their office, which should be like a good promo and good pictures. It's beautiful. So yeah, we're very excited about that because it's just an embracing of the cafe concept. And I think that's pretty cool. And yeah, so every year there's an International Day of Repair. This is the 9th, actually. It hasn't been every year, but it's October 18th, which again was the original date of the first Repair Cafe. And so it's just a movement for all of us to do the cafes. Obviously, we can't have them all on the same day. That defeats the purpose, but to just acknowledge it. And so last year they did Repair for Everyone was the theme. They had over 2,000 events that day. This year, the focus is on the end of Windows 10 support, which is happening in mid-October. And so all those computers are not going to be usable. And so it's this term, we use the term planned obsolescence a lot in repair world, which is that they've planned it to be something that breaks. This is a term I hadn't heard before, premature obsolescence, because they're just cutting out the legs from under it, no support. Most people won't be able to use it. And there are no laws globally about this kind of work. But the Restart Project, and I have the link there, it has a toolkit. I'm not a computer person and I don't really understand it, but there's something about being able to convert it to Linux. I mean, pronouncing that right? Yes, Linux, that's exactly. And so there is so that's the toolkit. I'm sure we'll make these slides available. I have no problem with that. And if anyone needs a link, we can always email us afterwards. Our email is on, I believe, the last slide.
Yeah, that's
Take a
right.
picture if that's the not.
Oop.
Yeah, sorry. This is just an example of our calendar is the next thing, right?
Oh, yeah. So as Susie said, she tries very hard not to schedule competing repair cafes, that are close to one another on the same day. But if you go to the repaircafehb.org website, you can see the calendar and you can see that, it slows down a little bit during the summer, as people are away. But, hopefully you don't have to look very far to find a repair cafe near you. And you can see that many of them repeat. For example, Port Jervis, is having one in July, has one in August. We in Yorktown do one every 3 months, so 4 per year. And we start to hit a cadence where somebody can say, well, gee, I have that little pile of items that need repair. I can wait for Yorktown or I can go to a neighboring community. No, you don't get ID'd at the door.
No, everything is open to everyone. You can
Yeah,
go to
anyone can
yeah.
go to any repair cafe. And so, you can find repair cafes nearby.
Or you could take a day trip. We have one in Rhinebeck.
Yes.
Like we have some really fun
Yes.
towns, and so often people will make a trip to go visit a friend or to visit a town or something to do it, which is kind of fun.
And the Yorktown Repair Cafe is coming up Saturday, July 26th.
So I want to make sure we open it up and leave time for a discussion and
Yep.
questions.
Yep. Well, this is our last
It's
slide,
very,
so thank you
very
very much.
inspiring. While we're waiting for questions, I also want to point out that my feeling is that it changes your relationship to the object. There's a kind of satisfaction and you feel more connected to the object. I don't know that I'm a great repair person, but and now I'm talking about doing on my own or learning to do it on my own. I do darn my socks. I have wool socks that I use all winter and they're more expensive. And I thought to myself, you know what? Why don't I learn? My mother used to darn. I bet I could learn to do it. So it really kind of changes your I'm very proud of my darn socks. You have a warmer relationship to the object. It has a little history in it. Gail, I see one, just 1 second. there was one time where I think my son knocked over some little pottery thing and I figured out how to very carefully repair it. It's still got a little line there and I feel kind of a warm feeling about it, not just because I repaired it, but because it reminds me, I think of my son every time. And I just decided I'm not going to get annoyed by that. I'm just gonna love it more. Gail?
Yeah, I had one comment and a question. On the right to repair, part of that was it was an incredible number of cell phones that people have to throw out. And sometimes it was because the manufacturers made it so you couldn't remove the battery and
Mhm,
change the
mhm.
battery, which was crazy. So the question is, when you repair electronic parts, like some things like, I don't know, DVD players and stuff, sometimes it's a capacitor or something that goes bad. Do you have extra parts there to replace that, or do you tell the person what it needs and then they get it and they put it in later, or how do you
Yeah,
have?
so it depends. Usually for something like that, it's unlikely we would have, the specific capacitor or transistor or resistor that's needed. That's typically something you'd want to do on a bench. Um, that being said, for example, my husband brings a whole supply, and most repair cafes have a supply of things like, light sockets, lamp sockets, and cording and switches and things like that. Bob, my husband, brings clock movements because over time he's seen the most popular models for the movements in the hands and things like that. So you start to build up an inventory of items. But again, as Susie said, very often you may just provide advice. You'll give information on where, watch a YouTube video, find out what you need. You can go ahead and acquire that spare part and then bring it to another repair cafe, or perhaps go to a professional.
Yeah, and so Sarah is one of the few cafes that has a sign-up system, and one of the tremendous benefits is that then she gets to vet what is coming in, and if she has a question, she can contact them and say, "Hey, this is a sort of specialty lamp or a specialty whatever," and talk it through. And so, if people reach out with information for us, we can give them advice on what to bring ahead of time. We are pretty stocked with lamps, of course, but if an antique lamp comes in, we don't have exactly the right size, so it just depends. We try, but sometimes we get stumped. But again, sometimes one of the piece of advice we give an organizer is to have internet and a Wi-Fi password, because your cafe, your coach can help someone order the part online right then and there if that's the easiest way.
Mhm.
I saw Beatrice had put into the chat a quote from Pete Seeger: "If it can't be reduced, reused, repaired, rebuilt, resold, recycled, or composted, it should be restricted, redesigned, or removed from production." So part of it is about kind of reducing the waste, like maybe passing legislation that to kind of do away with this, to help do away with at least some of the most egregious aspects of the throwaway disposable culture, that you use something once and then.
Mhm.
Gail, did you want to comment on that? I see you nodding your head. No?
Oh, no, it's just that was sort of the idea behind the Right to Repair Act.
Right.
There has been an auto right to repair act for a number of years, and this was modeled after that for
Mhm.
digital items. But yeah, that's part of the goal, so that people could train, and also for independent people to fix things, because basically the companies would hold their stuff as proprietary, and
Mhm.
you couldn't get the tools and stuff, as you were saying. So.
Yeah, there was a big issue with John Deere, as farmers couldn't get their farm equipment repaired in a timely manner because of various supply chain issues and proprietary information. You could only send it to John Deere, or, and it created big backups.
John Rath, I think you had a question.
Thank you, Sarah. My bike is still working really well.
John's one of our satisfied customers.
You bet. I'm wondering about promotions and publicity, and maybe the group doesn't need it or want it, but just thinking of maybe asking municipalities or waste management organizations to send stuff out in a flyer or somehow help communicate so we get them involved. So many things I see on the side of the road that just
Mm,
appall me that are going in the landfill.
So, if anyone can get me a contact, I do all these sort of institutional level stuff. So like I have a contact in Orange County and they will advertise the Orange County cafes, but I can't do every single one. Like usually that falls to the organizer, right? So like I'm the Irvington organizer, so I send it out and the Irvington like mayor sends it, that kind of stuff. So it's a little
Yeah,
bit of both. But if anyone has a contact at a countywide level, you can send that to me.
yeah,
Otherwise,
I think Rockland County, I mean, it would make sense for them to let me know so that I can send it out to our list, but I don't get people at Sierra Club. We'd be glad to help promote. And also
mhm.
same is true for the other counties in our, and sometimes I'll get a last minute notice, can you forward this? But really they should be sending to groups like Sierra Club and other groups that
Well, one
would
of
be
the really nice
yeah.
things is New York State DEC, is it Susie?
yes.
In their weekly newsletter, they put a list of all of the
Oh, that's
various
great.
repair cafes that are coming up really throughout the state, right?
Yes,
Dan,
they do.
that's great. Daniel?
Yeah, I have a few things here. One is who has the contact to Terry Hall Repair Cafe? I'm interested in helping them organize more often.
Sorry, which cafe?
I think it was
Uh,
Tarry Hollow.
yeah,
Oh,
Terry Hall.
yeah, you can talk to me. You know, everyone's a little overwhelmed. So our
Yeah.
model in the river towns, which is where I live, is that each cafe does one a year. And so we're one draw.
Oh, okay.
Right. So Terrytown and Sleepy Hollow is one cafe, and then
Yeah.
Irvington is one, and Hastings is actually doing two this year, and
Mhm.
Taos is doing one. And so we consider that 5 cafes, and that's yeah. But if you want to
Oh,
get,
okay.
you can reach out to me, and I'm happy to I'll put my email here. You can always reach out to me, and I'll make sure you're in touch with you. Do you know?
And John, I think I was going to say that many of the repair cafes are done in conjunction with whatever that community's kind of, whether it's climate smart community or their conservation committee or their green team or whatever. So the municipalities are involved. And so maybe it's held at a town building center. And so they're getting the word out through their community channels that way. Certainly Rockland County, Peggy, they rotate to different locations in Rockland County, but it's one coordinator, I think Kathy
Mhm.
Gallione.
I know Kathy.
And that's
Yeah.
done in conjunction with the county government and their conservation corps as well.
Well,
So that's well coordinated.
I know I get the notice of from Yorktown when holiday different schedules for trash pickup and that kind of thing and what can be recycled and what can't. I was just thinking if the information could be included on that or some basic information might not have to be dates, but who to contact, whatever, that
Mhm,
we could spread the word that way, and it wouldn't be a
I,
big deal
I,
for them.
mhm,
I want to agree with John. I think that the municipalities very often have their own email lists,
mhm,
their own Facebook, etc. And it really most of them are happy for more content to post. And there yes, send it to Sierra Club and the conservationists of Westchester, etc., but send it also to the municipalities. I feel like they could be better publicized. Yeah.
Mhm.
And again, I
I,
would
but,
cut down on all that curbside trash,
right.
you
But
know,
I think it's also about creating a different relationship to our
Mhm.
objects and just understand it's the repair cafes sound really wonderful, and you really emphasized how the sense of community and people teaching each other, but also just people kind of taking that extra step instead of discarding, just saying, well, wait a minute, could I have it repaired or could I learn how to repair it? It's a little different relationship to to that object. Um, I used to work with a Russian woman who I admired a sweater that she was wearing, and she said, "Oh, it's actually I made it from a different sweater." In other words, she had a sweater that I think it was a sweater that she actually bought because she didn't, it was inexpensive, and she didn't like the sweater, but she loved the wool, and she thought I could do better than that. So she bought this sweater, she unraveled it, and then she used the yarn, you know? It's just like I don't know, that it's just like a wonderful attitude that I don't know that most Americans would think of, even repairing shoes, sewing buttons, mending simple tears, that this is something that all of us who are a little older should think to try to teach our children, because very often the younger generation doesn't know. And the other thing I wanted to comment on was to go back to the slide that you had, Wabi Sabi, and
Mhm.
just kind of sort of emphasize it's sort of an aesthetic, a Japanese aesthetic as I understand it, that's sort of the opposite of kind of perfection, that
Mhm.
it's an aesthetic where there's a beauty to objects that show the passage of time. It's kind of like, think of the cherry blossoms kind of thing. You know, things are ephemeral. We are ephemeral, like things that show a patina that maybe do show a crack. There's a Japanese art of repairing pottery, Susie, that you mentioned to me, kintsugi.
With
Kintsugi,
gold.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
So
But
it's really
again, it's a
valuable.
different concept
Yeah.
than, as
yeah,
Susie said, the repair cafe is kind of triage, right? Come in, see if we can be, rescued,
right.
or not. And then there are people like your friend who would take a sweater apart and then, create a new sweater
It's
from it.
creative. It's
It's
very
it's
creative.
all it's all repair. It's
There's a
just
creative
different flavors.
satisfaction in that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I will say, speak to that as a jeweler. Like I have come up with some tricks on the spot using tools, using pieces in a different, like, because you have to fix what you have there. I mean, the mandate is to do the best you can, but also to fix as much as you can. And it is extremely satisfying, and it's a little mind-blowingly overwhelming by the end of the day. But it's really, the collaboration between fixers and the tool sharing, but also just, having an idea. And that's one of the reasons the fixers love it so much. I mean, there are always people to whom it doesn't speak because they'd rather be in their own workshop on the weekend. But a lot of us are in our own workshop all the time, and we love coming together and getting to just be like challenged. It's like a challenge. It's like it's like one of those cooking shows. This is what you have, and you need to work with it. And it's a different skill set, and it's kind of exciting.
So other questions I know I want to move on to the other topics that we had promised to cover as well. Yes, Daniel?
Like I was about to go on before.
Daniel, can you move the microphone closer to your mouth? It's sort of pushed away.
Sorry. Um, yeah, I do a lot of computer repair, and half of it I intend to do for like people that can't really afford that, and I also tend to work on computers to donate. Uh, uh, I have yet to find anything on Cyro, but I tend to buy stuff off of Goodwill and try to find them on different thrift stores all over and try to fix it up and donate. Because there's a county volunteer program. Can't think of it right now, but I was thinking of joining them. They're
It's a
without
little,
they're currently looking for a space at the moment. So, but
Sarah or Susie, were you able to understand?
He's talking about getting computers, sort of buying and collecting computers that are not really usable and fixing them and donating them. I know there were a few groups doing this. You know who knows this is MJ Wilson. She's very involved with some of the folks doing computer stuff, and there are other people like that. You can certainly reach out to me, and if I can try to look through my emails. And I sort of act like a central warehouse for information a lot. I sometimes feel like the circular economy, but I mean, it's just about getting the right people in touch with the right people. All these people are doing different pieces, and together it's this one big world.
Yeah.
And we're happy to facilitate in any way we can.
Where are you located, Daniel? Are you in Rockland?
Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah,
Oh,
Sleepy Hollow,
okay.
right across
Because
the river.
there's a
Yeah.
group called, it's formed back in the 80s. It used to be called Westchester PC Users Group.
Yeah, that's the one.
They've
Yeah,
got a
that's
new
one.
group now, they've got a different name now, but they
Yeah.
still do that type of work. So if you can
Yeah.
reach out to them, you
Yeah.
can get hooked up with people, I think, that,
Yeah.
have that same interest as you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And there is
so
a
I
big
wanna-
need for that with all
Second.
these computers.
I want to respect everybody's time.
Yep.
We try to wrap up by 8:30. So are there any other?
I saw
Question?
Mark Kramer asked, how do we get the youth, middle school and high school to be fixers? And I know that some of the repair cafes have been successful in getting young people to sort of be apprentices and to buddy up with a more established or experienced fixer. And I know we had a situation last year in Mayapack where there were some high school students who were so thrilled that they learned how to do some sewing, and they were taking photos and showing their friends and doing
There you go.
selfies and just getting really pumped up about it and amazed that they could do this with a little bit of training.
Thank you so much, Sarah and Susie. This is kind of a subject that's sort of close to my heart. I think it's kind of a feel-good thing, and it's
Yes,
also
Jorge.
climate action.
What company am I calling here?
Oops. I
What
think John meant to
organization
be
are you
on
with?
mute.
John, was that directed to us? No? Okay. So any other last questions or comments? Okay. So maybe we'll go on to the next topic, but thank you so much. And I am definitely inspired to start saving my objects and look for the next repair cafe.
Thank you for
All
having
right,
us.
thank you.
I'll be in
Thank
touch,
you.
Peggy,
Thank
about
you.
advertising. So
Okay.
good night.